Hello, John. Welcome to my show. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and it's a pleasure to be a guest.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you very much. John, you are an internationally acclaimed jazz organist, pianist, and composer, and a Grammy Award winner. You have described yourself as a jazz fusion musician. You have performed with many incredible musicians, such as Chick Corea, Oscar Peterson, Edgar Winter, Richie Cole. Hubert Laws, Andy Summers of the Police, Henry Mancini, Ramsey Lewis, Bill Sheehan, Donna Summer, Manhattan Transfer, and A Taste of Honey, and many, many more. You have had several top 10 hits on the Billboard Jazz chart. One of them, Good to Go, I was just dancing to, reaching number one. In addition to your musical accomplishments, you are a best selling author and music educator. You have written the bestseller Industry Keyboard Method, The Contemporary Keyboardists, and your latest, a number one Amazon best-selling book, which is very, very hard to get a copy of, The Invisible Architect: How to Design Your Perfect Life from Within, which delves into the intriguing fusion of the memoir and channel transformational self-help principles. Welcome to my show again. Very, very excited that you're here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Well, my first question to you is, how did you get started as a musician?
Well, believe it or not, I was 3 years old and saw a keyboard on TV on a show.
Yeah.
And the keyboard itself, it was an accordion player, but I saw the keyboard. At 3 years old, you're not thinking that much. But it was almost like the Lord speaking to me because I saw the keyboard. And at 3 years old, I just pointed to the keyboard, and my parents looked at each other and said, "Hey, look at he's pointing to the keyboard." So a little bit later, they started lessons for me, and that's how it started. So it felt like that was a meant to be thing from the Lord. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yes,
And then I just kept hearing that voice and following it, and eventually that's why I wrote my book, The Invisible Architect, because it was that inner voice that we all have, intuition and whatever you want to call it, was with me my whole life.
wow, wow. Did Jimmy Smith have any influence on your organ playing?
Well, when I started to get once I started courting lessons, then I got into the piano, then
Yeah.
I got into organ lessons, and the Hammond B3 is one of the most famous organs that existed. And in the 60s, a lot of bands in the soul world, the funk world, the R&B world, and the jazz and the blues world were B3 players. And so Jimmy Smith was one of the first guys that I got turned on to. When I heard him playing the blues, I just, whoa, what is that? And so
Yeah.
I got all of his records and I started stealing every note and phrase I could from him.
Oh, wow, wow. Considering your background and success as a jazz musician, um, can you tell me what made you decide then to write a personal growth spiritual development book?
Well, it's really funny because the book, because that we're in the area of metaphysics. So if a psychic would have come up to me and said, "Hey, in the future, you're going to write a couple metaphysical books," and I would have went, "No, you got the wrong guy. I'm a jazz cat." But my first wife passed away in 2000,
Yeah,
and I was so, you know, we were so tight.
yeah.
We started getting communications from the hereafter. That's how I can explain it in dreams and everything. So I did a bunch of research about ADCs, after death communications. And
Mhm.
so I wrote a book called The Song That Never Ended, felt was my way to pay it forward to help people recover from losing a loved one, because none of us escape that. We all lose loved ones, right? And
Yeah.
so the reason why I called it Song That Never Ended was, hey, we're eternal spirits. Our song doesn't end just because our body dies. And that book was to help people. So then fast forward 20 years and I got remarried,
Mhm.
an incredible person. And I lost her uh, three and a half, no, three, yes, almost 3 years ago. But before I lost her, we were living in LA and we were just getting ready to move out of LA and move to Nashville and get into this music scene. And I woke up one day and the Invisible Architect, which is my name for God, the Father, kind of said, "Hey, you need to pay it forward because ever since 3 years old, you and I have been communicating and you've been following my advice. And now you've become famous, so you need to pay it forward. And I was like, what do you mean pay it forward? Like, why don't you just discuss sort of in an autobiography form your
Mhm.
relationship with God? Well, I didn't have a name for it yet. And that's how I started writing the book, The Invisible Architect, which I didn't have a name for, which later on I did. So it's all about spirituality and mindset and how to live a better life by hooking up with the Lord and inviting him into your life.
I see. Okay. Can you please tell us your biggest letdown in your music career, but how you let that letdown to become your eventual success in terms of your book, The Invisible Architect?
Yeah, I grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania, which is a small little town, and nothing really happens much in Erie. But I was in a band that I eventually got in a band, and I was like the musical director of this band when I was like 17 or 18. And we were playing at a Ramada Inn one night. This
Hmm.
goes to show you that, you know, the architect works in mysterious ways. So we were playing, it was a snowstorm,
Yeah.
and the manager said, why don't you go home? Because there's nobody in the club. So we were about ready to go home, and all of a sudden a big bus load of people showed up in the parking lot and other people out of the blue. And he goes, hey, you can't leave. You got to play your last set. So we went back on stage and played the last set. And after we were done, this producer guy, I didn't know his name or anything, he
Yeah.
comes up and he said, hey, uh, this must be serendipity because I live in Cleveland. I'm driving from New York to Cleveland, and you got to pass through Erie. And he said, I was going to keep going, but the snowstorm was so bad that my little voice said, let's pull off at the Ramada Inn. So he came down to have a drink after he checked in, and he heard my band and he flipped on it. And he said, are you guys signed? And I said, no, I don't even know what that means.
Okay.
So he signed us to a record deal. But the letdown answer to your question is
Yeah.
that was so easy, right? It was just like I wasn't trying to make it big or
Yeah.
do anything. The Lord just sent me this, and I went yippee! And then we started driving up to Cleveland, which is a 2-hour drive, while I was in my freshman year of college, and we recorded a song.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, it was a hit record, and we were about ready to go do an album. And our singer was so scared of the Vietnam War, so I'm now sort of dating myself. He joined and got drafted.
Oh,
And
what?
record companies don't like that because if your lead singer is not available, even though I was the musical director and brains behind it, the lead singer's gone. So next thing you know, we got dropped in the mail, and everything was so easy up until then. And then the carpet was pulled out from under me. And for like 2 weeks, I was just totally depressed. It was the biggest letdown. But further answer your question,
Yeah.
it's one of those sink or swim moments, right?
Right.
And I went, you know what? I had a taste. God gave me a taste of the music biz and what it's like to be successful. So I told my parents after I got out of college I was going to go to Boston and study music seriously at Berklee College of Music, which I did, and then I moved out to Los Angeles. So had that bad loss not happened, I don't know what would have happened. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a fascinating story. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
I could have had a hit record and never studied and became the consummate musician that I am now. And who knows what I would have got into? You know, I could have been famous and got into drugs and went down the dark side. I have no idea, you know.
Sure,
So,
sure.
so the Lord saved me from whatever and you know, helped me get that career that you described about.
You did, which is a fantastic career. So, what qualifies you to write this book, The Invisible Architect?
Well, my whole life, I've been interested as a side hobby because I'm an avid reader into philosophy, metaphysics, the Bible, all that kind of spiritual stuff, just to put it under one word.
Hmm.
And it's helped me in my career because it's helped me keep my head on straight. It's helped me have discipline. Has helped me have faith and to write to become an expert at a musical instrument is difficult enough, let alone trying to promote yourself in the business. And so all those things that I studied, I kind of accumulated notes on. And so about 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago, when I woke up one day, that little voice said, hey, it's time to pay it forward. And I was kind of like, oh, what are you talking about? I'm a musician.
Yeah.
No, I want you to write down and I'm going to help you. So the book's sort of almost sort of channeled. I want you to write down all your interactions with me, and I'll help you put it in book form. And I was sort of protesting it, but I got into it, and then I released it. And just like that hit record happened in Erie, I
Mhm.
wasn't trying to do anything. So I found somebody that knew how to get it on Amazon. We put it out, and within 3 days, it was an Amazon bestseller in the area of metaphysics. Go figure.
Oh,
I'm a
wow.
jazz guy. And I had my friends calling me up and saying, man, what the heck? How did that happen? I said, hey, I don't know. Don't ask me. It's above my pay grade.
So why did you name it The Invisible Architect? And can you please explain who, again, is the Invisible Architect? I know you
Well,
made,
I didn't have a name for it initially.
yeah,
And I've already written many other books in the music area and that other one I told you about. So I know how to write a book. So I started putting an outline together of the key fundamentals that I've used my whole lifetime. But I
yeah.
didn't have a name. And one day I was like asking God, hey, give me a name here. I don't want to make it so obvious, the Lord, how to design from within or something like that. None of it was working. And then one day I was on the internet, and you know how they all have all those advertisements that follow you around and are kind of a pain in the butt.
Yes.
On the side, there was an architect, and he was promoting his style of architect, which he called invisible architecture. And it was as soon as I saw that, it was almost like the God was going, duh, duh. And I was going, what do you mean, duh? And I kept looking, my head kept turning toward invisible architecture. So I read what it was, and it said it's a way of designing architecture that's streamlined and invisible. But then as the dust started happening, I went, oh, you're the architect, you're God, because I think it even mentions the word in the Bible. You're the creator, you design things. And so I didn't have the word invisible. So then I wrote down as a working title, The Architect, How to Achieve a Better Life. So that was the original thing. And then it got mad at me. This voice got mad at me and said,
Really?
no, I'm invisible. So it's the invisible architect. And I went, oh, excuse me. Okay. And then it said, um, and besides, this is not a better life. I'm all knowing, all perfect, all loving, all everything. So you need to change that subtitle to how to design your perfect life from within, because if you seek perfection, you have a chance to achieve it. So that's when the title was born. I wasn't even done with the book. And
Yeah.
that helped me finish it because I had the title now.
Ah, I see. So do we all have our own invisible architect?
Absolutely. We, the architect is at a very high frequency, obviously. And just like a radio, you can't get a certain station if you don't know the frequency to tune it to, and you have to have a strong signal. So most of us, because of the way society is, are distracted with survival activities and
Hmm.
things like that. And yeah, some of us, depending on our religion, go to church on Sunday and
Hmm.
pray and listen to the pastor, but then we get back into the other part of our life. So the architect could be communicating and we're not even paying attention. And so that's the whole purpose of the book is I teach people how to become extremely clear and aware of this amazing intelligent energy. And the reason why I like not saying God and various other organized religions is because I don't want to associate what I'm talking about to a particular religion because I want people to be able to doesn't matter what the religion is. I do mentoring with atheists, and Buddhists, and Hinduists, Catholic. It doesn't really matter because what I espouse in my book are fundamentals. So we all have this inner voice. We all have a connection. We're all children of God, but because of society and distractions, we don't know the spiritual mechanics, which is my term for how to interact with the Lord. So if somebody's working with, well, first of all, they can read the book and find out all about it,
Right.
but it kind of easier and things move along if you have a mentor to help you through that. Because I've had several mentors in the music business that helped me gain knowledge. And uh, what do you call it? Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich talks about how important mentors are. So we all have an invisible architect, which is a relationship with this energy, this power, but we don't sometimes know how to interact with it and raise our frequency to actually accept and give communications. And so that's what the book is all about.
So that's my next question. So for some of our listeners who haven't read your book yet, and I know they're going to get it, how do we interact with our inner voice to help us get a better life?
Right. Well, that's what the 17 chapters in the book are. But to give it uh, uh, a summation, um, if we're distracted and we don't know or believe that God even exists, let alone how to interact with it, because praying only can be a bit of a victim thing. Oh, please God, help me, my rent's due, or please God, my sister's sick, or please. It's almost like a victim. I have no power. Could you please help me? Well, God gave us free will. The architect gave us free will, and he doesn't bypass us, and we're made in his image and likeness. So we have to learn how to go into the silence and listen, and we have to invite it into our lives because it's not going to bypass us. So I teach people how to become aware of the invisible architect, how to raise their frequency, how to interact, which is spiritual dynamics, and lastly, and most important, how to invite it into our lives so it can help us design and achieve our desires because it wants to do that, A, and B, it expresses itself through each of us. It's
Mhm.
the general, and we are the particular. The problem that happened with the law of attraction and the secret when it came out is
Mhm.
people kept thinking that it's just, I have to have a positive affirmation and I can attract what I want. And that's not it. The
Right.
real power is God, and we're the distributor of that power. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Also, in your book, you talk extensively about be plus do equals have sequence. Can you please explain that in a few sentences for our
Yeah.
listeners?
Well, normally, um, I don't want to sound extraterrestrial, but most earthlings have it backwards. In other words, yeah, if I had a lot of money and connections, I could make decisions and do this. And then if I did that, I would become or be X.
Yeah.
But in actual, all successful people, whether they know it or not, it's the opposite. You have to be what you want to achieve in your own thoughts and mind and vision. Athletes do it all the time. They
Yeah.
envision that gold medal. And when I play, and so I teach people this be, do, have manifestation formula, how to control their thoughts and make them laser precise.
Hmm.
And so when we work together on a mentor program, I find out all the undesirable situations in their life, which could be big or little. That's your haves, all the haves you have. And most people put their attention on the have to try to fix the have. Nah, you want to put your attention on the be and get it clear and focused and powerful. And then the haves just fall by the wayside. So that's what the whole mentor program is about.
Ah, is this just another law of attraction positive thinking book?
No, not even close. Uh, I've had, I can't tell you how many people from an atheist to a Buddhist to a Hinduist to whatever,
Yeah.
people that have done a myriad or a plethora of law of attraction type courses and spent their money and got no result. And the reason is there's things missing in the education, especially the hookup to the invisible architect, because that's the real power. It's
Mm,
narcissistic to think that we're the power. I am healthy. I am wealthy. And I just have to focus and I have to do this and do this. And it's not I at all. That's a narcissistic viewpoint.
yeah.
It's God implanted me with various desires. And if I want to achieve those, I have to hook up with the power that helped me with these because it's the one that designs and achieves your better life. You sort of are the director and the distributor of that power. And once I get people through the mentoring process to understand that, my analogy would be if you were during World War II and you were in the front lines
Hmm.
and the enemy was coming over the hill and you didn't even know you had air support back at command base, you would be fighting the enemy with your few people. But if you knew you had air supply, you could get on the walkie-talkie and say, "Hey, coordinates 2585, help, help, help." Next thing you know, the jets come over and you
Right.
win the battle. So it's the same thing. A lot of us go through life with me themselves challenging the world, which is so silly when you've got this all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving, waiting in the wings to help you, but it won't bypass you. For some reason, that's above my pay grade. It gave us free will, and we have to invite it into our lives. And so I have a whole procedure on how to do that, which is called spiritual mechanics, that is in the book. And it's hard to do it yourself because of discipline. So that's why I didn't decide. The architect said, you need to pay it forward now that you wrote the book and be a
Right.
one-on-one mentor. So I don't believe that this can be done in a group setting. Everybody's different, so I do it one-on-one.
Ah, I see. Okay. So, also, what do you mean by, because in your book you talk about too, money antibiotics. What do you mean by that? What is
Well,
that?
an antibiotic uh, is supposed to, uh, when you take it, kill, believe it or not, all of your life inside, all of the molecules and things. But by doing that, it also usually gets the disease, which afterwards you usually have to take probiotics to replace.
Yeah.
So a biotic, in this case, money antibiotic, if you have a disease, which I like to call scarcity or lack, everybody's got lack or almost every problem in somebody's life, whether it's a problem with relationships, I don't love myself, I'm having physical problems, problems with money, all of that has to do with a lack of abundance or scarcity, right? So if
Yeah.
you have a scarcity in your life, we want to remedy that scarcity with what? Abundance in that area. So money antibiotics is a whole bunch of affirmations and procedures that are geared to help people debug the area of lack of money. And once that happens, the world of abundance starts opening up to people. It doesn't matter if it's relationships or health or whatever. So money antibiotic is a whole chapter deal that deals with how to open up that area and handle that disease called scarcity or lack.
Ah, so
Because that's a disease. It's not just a victim and I'm unlucky.
yeah.
You're doing something to help create that scarcity. We have to change the be and the be do have. In
Hmm.
order to have a better have, we have to change the be.
Right. So, can anybody apply these principles in your book?
Absolutely. I have had unbelievable results with anybody, even people that are completely, you know, they've failed so much their whole life, they don't even have any faith anymore. So
Yeah.
once I get them, if they could figure out how to get to me and sign up, then I start working with them. And like I said, I do it one-on-one. So anybody can learn the spiritual mechanics of how to interact with the architect and invite it into their lives so they can design perfect lives.
Ah, okay. Can you, I know you talked about your childhood sweetheart earlier, but can you elaborate on your reunion with your childhood sweetheart and why it was a miracle?
Yeah, it was amazing because my first wife, I had 20 years, and she passed away from cancer
Yeah.
in 2000. And I was grieving. It was about a year into it. And I thought about my first high school girlfriend, 15 and a half years old. And I hadn't seen her in 36 years. I
Yeah.
wasn't in touch. So she entered my space. And I kind of smiled because I had this relationship with the architect and was kind of already psychic because of that. And I went, oh, the fact that I thought of Barb Simpson must mean something. 2 weeks later, I get an email from, hey, John, it's Barb Simpson. Do you remember me? And I kind of snickered and laughed. I said, there it is. There it is. So we started emailing back and forth. She found out that I had just lost my wife,
Yeah.
breath of fresh air, and that the Lord sent me her. And within a little bit of time, uh, I sent for her,
Yeah.
and we got married and had 20 fantastic years. But the miracle of it was, she goes, well, I want to come and see you because she lived in Virginia. I lived in LA. So she booked a flight, and she didn't know anything about my background, anything about me being a bit psychic and all that other stuff. She just knew me as a musician. So 5, 6 days before, the architect said, hey, you better call Barb up. and let her know that she should not fly that day. Something's not right with the flight. And I
Yeah.
went, really? What? And it's funny, it wouldn't tell me. So I called her up. I said, look, you're going to think this is funny or that I've got cold feet, but I don't. All I can tell you is don't fly that day, change your flight. And I had to yell at her because she didn't believe me. Finally, she changes the flight and comes out 4 days later. Anyway, she would have been on the one flight uh, in 9/11. That was Tuesday. That time she was on it, and but she didn't end up being on it because it was 9/11, and she changed her flight. And she called me like 4 hours later that day, screaming and yelling, "How did you know? Oh my God!" All that. So I figured, you know what? If that's not a sign that I need to marry this girl, then I'm an idiot. You know what I mean?
Of
So
course.
then we had 20 beautiful years together, and unfortunately, it was her time. And
Yeah.
a year after we arrived here in the Nashville area, she had a stroke, and that was a rough one for me because my first wife, I had a lot of chance to say goodbye because we fought cancer for 2 years.
Yeah.
And of course, you learn from life's lessons. But this one was 13 months here. She had just put the house together. Bango, she's gone.
Oh,
I've
goodness.
grown amazingly from it,
Yeah.
and but I'm just blessed to have two 20-year wonderful relationships. Feels like two lifetimes.
You are definitely blessed. I in the intro, I talked about how you've worked with so many great people. Chick Corea is one, and unfortunately, he passed away in 2021.
A couple years ago, yeah, 3 years ago,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's unfortunately. Can you talk about how that relationship came about?
Yeah, again, that's the old architect inner voice. Somebody, my drummer, when I was in Erie, Pennsylvania, in a band, came to rehearsal one day and he played me two records. He goes, "Hey, I've got two new records." He was a record collector for you.
Yeah,
One was Oscar Peterson, and one was Chick Corea.
yeah,
So I went home and listened to both of them. And I went, and because they're different, right? Oscar Peterson's more straight ahead bebop, Chick is more contemporary fusion.
yeah,
I listened to both of them and I was flipped. So it was about a month later, my little voice said, "Why don't you contact Chick?" Because in the back of the album it said correspondence, Huntington, New York. So I wrote a regular snail mail letter,
yeah.
not ever thinking he was going to answer it. But about a month later, it says, "Hey, John, it's Chick. Thanks for all the kudos, and I'm glad my music has inspired you. Let's stay in touch." And I went, "Oh my God, Chick Corea just wrote me a letter." Oh, so we became pen pals
Yeah,
for about a year and a half back and forth. He'd give me advice. He was so willing because some celebrities aren't, you know.
right, of
And
course.
make a long story short, I moved to Boston, where he was from, Chelsea, and went to school at Berkeley for a couple years just to, get more highly trained after that loss because of my band
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
senior being drafted. And he was playing a concert, and I went to the concert, and a friend of mine got me in early, so I was sitting in the audience. No, but the doors hadn't been open yet.
yeah.
And then walks Chick Corea walking down the aisle, and I saw him with his wife, and I said, "Chick, it's Novello." He goes, "Novello, my pen pal." And we hugged as if like we were past life paisans, you know what I mean? And he brought me up on stage, and I
Right?
got to see him rehearse, and we became the best of friends. So he moved out to LA, and then when I moved out to LA, we became friends.
Yeah.
And he eventually signed one of my bands to his record label, and he wrote the foreword to my educational book, and we became best friends.
Oh,
And that wouldn't have happened had I not followed the inner voice,
exactly.
you know?
Exactly. That's a great story. Can you also tell us a story about of course, your number one Billboard smooth jazz hit, Good to Go, and how you used the principles in your book to manifest this?
Well, um, I had already had several records out in the smooth jazz world,
Yeah.
and they did well. But one day, a guy calls me up, says, "Hey, my name's Andy, and I heard you were the best educator in LA, and I'm a songwriter and a producer, and I want to enhance my music ability." So he came over and started taking lessons from me. And he was not that great of a keyboard player, but he was a great songwriter, producer. He just wanted to learn a little more to enhance his songwriting. So for 6 months, I'm teaching this guy, and I don't even know anything about him. And I don't know that he's famous. So one day my voice says, "Hey, look him up." So I looked up this guy named Andy Goldmark, found out he had sold over 100 million records. He had written songs and hits from so many different people. And I'm going, oh my God, I'm teaching this guy. I'm a struggling jazz musician, and this guy is multi, blah, blah, blah. This isn't
Yeah.
fair. So one day he came over. I said, hey, let's go get a coffee. And I said, you're holding out on me, dude. What's up? And he started laughing. I said, one of these days we got to work together. And he said, okay. Fast forward 2, 3 years later,
Yeah.
I was getting ready to put out a new record in the smooth jazz world because I'd already put out other records in the fusion world. And I called him up and I said, hey, Andy, I think it's time for us to work together. You need to give me a crumb here, dude. And he goes, well, I love your playing. It won't be a crumb. It'd be a pleasure to work with you. So we started working together, co-writing and co-producing. And that was meant to be because I was more of a jazz guy and I wasn't that radio friendly, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I just burned and created.
Yeah.
And he knew all about radio friendliness. And so it was a love-hate festival because I would send him some great stuff. He goes, genius, genius, but, and then he would start carving stuff to make it more radio friendly. And I'd get into an argument with him. And we kept doing that and doing that. So I learned all about writing more accessible music through him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
eventually I wrote the tune Good to Go and he put it out on, we have a mutual label together. So that's how that whole thing came about. That wouldn't have happened had he not called me for lessons. So again, I'm blessed.
Oh
But
my.
you have to, we're all blessed, but you have to pay attention to things in your life.
Yeah.
And I recommend a book called The Celestine Prophecy, where he talks about there are no coincidences and you have to pay attention to all of life's goings on to take advantage of it. Because I could have just taught him and not done anything about it, just like not calling Corea up, and none of these things would have happened, right?
Exactly, exactly. There's another phenomenal story that you talk about where you were in Japan, you meet Donna Summer,
My
and
God,
wait
that's
a minute, you got to
amazing.
talk about this one too.
That is still to this day so crazy. Uh, I was in the band Taste of Honey as the musical director, and we released a record, and that's where I won my first Grammy with Taste of Honey, Get Down Boogie Oogie Oogie. And
Yeah,
that's funny because I'm a jazz guy, and I'm involved with a hit disco group. Go figure.
yeah,
So again, the Lord works in very strange ways, so you have to pay attention. So we got invited to play the famous Budokan for this big review on this Manhattan Transfer, Al Jarreau, Rita Coolidge, Donna Summer, all these amazing artists. So we were in Japan for 3 days, and before we even had to play. So first time in Japan, I decided, you know what? I want to mess around here and tour around in Japan. So I
yeah.
asked the concierge, I said, hey, where do you get the best Japanese food? It was already good at the hotel. She goes, oh no, you got to take the subway and go down to the Tokyo wharfs in the neighborhood. And there's where the amazing food is. None of them speak English, but it doesn't matter. They're all friendly. So
Yeah.
I take the subway down about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I don't even know where I'm at. I'm getting lost, but I didn't care. And I found this one restaurant. I went in and ate and pointed to the food, and they were all friendly. And I saw it's time to go back to the hotel. And those are the days, no cell phone, and there's no cabs there. This is not Tokyo. This is 8 miles outside of Tokyo. So I walk out and it's getting dark. And I went, you dummy, how the heck are you going to get home? Didn't have a cell phone, and the
Yeah.
band had a limo, but I didn't take it. I wanted to be on the subway. So in my head, I said, you know what? I could see Tokyo because it's skyscraper city.
Right.
And I said, you know what? I'm about 10 miles away. As long as I don't get mugged, I think I'm just going to walk. Maybe it'll take me an hour. Who cares? So I started walking in this dark neighborhood by the bay. And I thought, boy, it would have been great if you took the limo, John. And just as I said this, in the book, I toned it down and
Yeah.
said, "Hey, Mister," I heard this voice to the right. "Hey, Mister, do you need a ride?" In actual fact, between me and you, she said, "Hey, white boy, do you need a ride?" So I turned around because it was so loud in my head.
Yeah.
I turned around and I went, "Oh my God, there's a stretch black limo." And I had just said, "Why didn't you take the limo?" And now I didn't even know who said it. And the window rolls down, and Donna Summer peeks her head out. She had met me during the day at rehearsal. I mean, not
Yeah.
personally, she'd seen me. And so she saw me. Now, what are the odds that she's down there at the same time I am? And I found out
Right.
later the
Yeah.
coincidence was she asked the same question to the concierge about where to get the great food. And the
No.
concierge Only she was smarter than me. She didn't, of course, she's more famous. Why would she
Yeah.
take a subway? She'd have got mobbed. So she took the limo and I took the subway. So then I got in the car with her. I said, "Oh my God, thank you so much, Donna." And then we hit it off for 45 minutes, became friends. And the next year she asked me to join the band.
Unbelievable.
So
Unbelievable.
all these amazing, miraculous stories, or most
Yeah.
of them, are in my book to explain how we all are blessed as long as we can hook up to this amazing invisible architect, to God, this energy, and learn how to do it. So that's what my mentor program is all about, and that's what the book is about.
And something else you talk about in the book too, which is spiritual mechanics. Why is it important not only to understand these, but how to apply this for a better life?
Well, I think a lot of people are God-fearing and God-believing, but that's only part of the iceberg. The rest of the iceberg under the ocean is the important part. Since God gave us free will, uh, we need to be able to communicate with and invite the invisible architect into our lives.
Hmm.
Most people don't have to do it. There's all these different organized religions on planet Earth, and they all have truths in them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just believing and not acting, in my opinion, is not good enough. We have to take action. What's that phrase? And I don't know ever where it's not in the Bible, but there's a famous phrase, God helps those who help themselves. We've all heard that maxim.
Indeed.
And so the spiritual mechanics of something is how it operates. So in this case, spiritual has to do with the spiritual realm as compared to the physical realm, right?
Hmm.
And so spiritual mechanics, as I defined it in my book, is becoming aware of this power, this invisible architect, God, whatever your beliefs and names are. But more importantly, how do you communicate, pray to it, listen to it, find it, interact with it, and invite it into your lives to help create a better life? And I think that's the thing that's missing. And in the book Celestine Prophecy, the author, James Redford, he even says, that's a fiction book. He said, but the world has become separate from its origins, meaning source, God, the creator of all. And to the degree that we become separate, and in the Bible and Christianity, sin is defined as becoming separate from God, basically. So as more and more we become alienated or separate from this power, we become weaker and weaker. So the spiritual mechanics that I uh, go over in my book shows us how to rehook up with this power, how to acknowledge it, invite it into our life, because once we can raise our frequency to this frequency of the architect, problems just magically fall apart, because if God created all, it can manifest anything, right? So why
Yeah.
should you knock your head against the wall trying to manifest something when you've got this ultimate friend, ultimate bodyguard, ultimate power, but you're not using it? Doesn't make sense. So that's what spiritual mechanics is all about.
Then what are desire thieves?
Oh yeah, that's a name I came up with. I hope I didn't steal that from somebody. Uh, you never can tell when you come up with something good. You keep thinking, God, I hope I'm not stealing it. I think I think somebody else might have called it a dream thief, but a desire, of course, is something you have that you don't sort of know where it comes. You have a desire to be a musician, or desire to be a CEO, or a desire to win a gold medal. These desires sort of come with the territory, and a desire thief means something that steals that. And one of the things that steal it is counterthought to your desire. So if you have a desire to be, say, a jazz musician like I did, and you start practicing your instrument and it's hard and you got to practice every day. And like I did, you had a problem where the army took the lead singer.
Yeah.
Well, if I would have agreed, that would have been a thief of my desire. But what happened with me is I went, oh, I get it. You're strengthening my faith. So instead of me wearing black and becoming a victim and giving up, which would have been giving in to the desire thief, which was my mind saying, yeah, look at the singer just got drafted. This is really hard. All
Yeah.
those little counter thoughts that come into our lives, if we let them, they can steal our thunder. take the wind out of our sails and get rid of our desires. I can't tell you how many times I played in clubs and people would come up to me, especially some guy coming, he's half drunk. Yeah, I used to play the piano, but I, well, yeah, his goal got thwarted, and now he's hearing somebody play, and unfortunately, it's reminding him of his thwarted goal or his failed purpose. So we have to be careful, and that's also in the book. How do you handle desired thieves? How do you control your thoughts? That's another part of the book.
Is that why so many of us fail to achieve our goals and wishes and desires?
That's the only reason, because in actual fact, with God and a clear desire that you can stay focused on, you will achieve your desire. The
Yeah,
only way you don't, what's that famous phrase? There is no such thing as failure. There's only giving up, which is not an option.
yeah,
Well, that's a maxim. It's easier said than done. So my book explains all the mechanics of how to do that, because it's very easy to have thoughts of other people too.
yeah,
Even a parent could go, well, no, you can't be a jet. You could be a jet. Well, you need something to fall back on. Well, wait a minute. The moment you say you need something to fall back on, you're saying you're probably not going to be successful, right?
mm,
So you have to be careful. These subtle, insidious counter thoughts and counter emotions that could come from within, come from the out, or come from a friend, they will steal your thunder.
yeah, yeah. True, true. You also wrote a book about after death communications, ADCs, called The Song That Never Ended, in which you describe the after death communication you have had with your first wife, who passed away, as we discussed earlier, from cancer. How you corroborated those ADCs through many medium sessions. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, well, when she was getting ready to pass, the thing that was different about her passing compared to my present wife who passed was we had time to be together, because we had a fight for 2 years, where my current wife, who just passed 2.5 years, that was suddenly, right?
Yeah.
So we said, uh, hey, we're soulmates, and we don't know what's really going to happen. Looks like you're going to be going before me. If there's a way for you to contact me and let me know you're all right, and let's do it. So we agreed. And then she
Yeah.
passed away about 3 months later. And right the day she passed, just before she took her last breath, like it says in the book, I felt this communication from her, and she said, John, it's true. We're eternal beings. I'm outside my body. The body was still breathing, but barely. I'm outside, and there's no more cancer, and this is fantastic. Thanks for being all this stuff she communicated to me. So that was so amazing that after I went through a little bit of the grieving process, I got inspired. I said, a lot of people go through loss. All of us lose a pet, lose a loved one.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, we don't really lose them. They're just changing dimensions. Death is a
Mhm.
way to go from one place to another, and everybody's got different beliefs on it. So let me do a little more research. And I found out there was a whole world of ADC authors, after death communications, and corroboration. So I got the idea. I said, you know what? Oh, and I was getting tons of communications then.
Oh,
So from her that I knew, but I didn't want to be like the wishful thinking husband. So I wanted to validate it, because, all authors do research.
right.
So I never had a medium session before, and I researched mediums, and I found about 8 or 9 of the best ones on the planet that had credibility. And I hired each of them for my book research, one by one, and I made sure they didn't know who I was, because I was famous, so I didn't want them to know my name. So
Right.
we did phone calls and first name only, and I blocked all my phone. And I did 8 or 9 of them, and only one of them I think was fraudulent, and my wife didn't come through. But on the other 8, she came through with amazing things that only her and I would know,
Wow.
which was an amazing corroboration of the all of us being eternal beings and things like that. So I published all
And what
those
she
in the
saw on
back.
the other side as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, tons of communications. I got obsessed then, as you can imagine. I'm a grieving husband. Now I'm not so grieving anymore, because my wife is still around talking to me in a different form. So then I hadn't even come close to writing my new book that I just wrote 4 years ago. So I finished all those medium sessions and published that book. But while I was doing the research on that book, I was obsessed with the other side. And I started reading all kinds of books on out-of-body experiences and traveling to the other side and astral projections. I didn't even know there was a world of books in that area.
Yeah.
And so I started doing experiments. And like it says in my book, a couple times I did get outside my body and I had total corroboration that I saw my body. And I went, oh my God, this is amazing. And on one occasion, I ended up crossing over, and I don't know exactly where I was in
Yeah.
the dimension, but I saw my wife at the top of the stairs, and I wanted to go hug her, and she was like, John, John, what are you doing here? You can't be here. This is not your time. And I've read about things like that.
Yeah.
And next thing, and I was upset because shoop, I went right back in my body, and I woke up, and I was upset about that because I wanted to go there. But I kind of got told, like, hey, it's not your time.
Yeah.
You got more life, more race to run. And that was a little tease to make you feel good. And the same thing happened with yeah, and the same thing happened with now that I became a bit of an expert at astral traveling and everything. And then my
Yeah.
current one passed away. Um, it'll be 3 years in September.
Yeah.
And I ended up crossing over and visiting her a couple times too.
What that's fascinating.
Oh, it's totally fascinating. I don't tell everybody necessarily because some people can't handle it.
Right. Of course, of course.
Some people think, "Oh God, John's woo woo," and, and I go, "Well, you can think I'm woo woo, but too bad for you because
That's right.
I'm enjoying my woo woo." And you'll soon. I had an argument with this one person. I said, "You know
Yeah.
what? You'll soon find out."
There you go. Yes, that's true.
Because he thinks it's all over when you die. And I went,
Right.
"Well, you'll soon find out."
That's
Mhm.
right. That's true. Very, very true. So how do you believe your music, particularly your compositions, can influence a person's happiness and emotional well-being?
Well, one thing I learned about music is, to me, it's God's language. And the frequency of music, uh, the way it vibrates and things, especially instrumental music,
Hmm.
because the moment you add words to it, now you're communicating. But even that still has instrumental music under it. But really, instrumental music, it the vibration of it is, I think, this is personally, that it raises people's frequency while they're listening to it. Like even when you said it made you feel so good listening to my one song, you start
Yes.
dancing. Well,
That's
what happened? I didn't tell you to dance. The song didn't tell you to dance. That was your inspiration, and your frequency got raised, and it made you happy. So you needed to express that happiness. So I think my composite, when I write a song now or a composition and compose, I know the potential power of this music to actually inspire people.
yeah.
And so that's been my success, is knowing that my music, if I do a good job, can inspire people. But then I got into this metaphysics of writing my other book, and I went, you know what? Even higher than that is inspiring somebody's great, but at the end of the day, they still have to go back to their lives. So that inspiration may last an hour, it may last a week, but if I can work one on one with somebody and literally show them how to raise their frequency more permanently and interact with the God frequency, now I've changed their life more than 5 minutes or more than an hour. So to me, they both go together. So I'm still a musician. I still love playing concerts and making people feel good, entertaining them and raising their frequency. But now I have an actual way that I can show them the mechanics of how they can raise their own frequency and design their perfect lives. So
Oh,
it goes together. It's amazing how the music and the metaphysics of this new book go together. And I didn't plan that, at least knowingly.
that's right. That's right. So looking back at your career, what moments stand out as the happiest for you and why?
Uh, that's a good question. I think when I made the decision to be a full-time musician, uh, because it's hard to make that decision. There's not a lot of an agreement, and it's really hard. And probably 1% of people even challenge themselves to become a musician, and another 0.1% actually have the discipline to conquer their instrument and become competent. And then you got another small percentage of people that end up making a living at it. Most musicians have stuff to fall back on and do this. So once I made the decision that, this is who John Novello is, this lifetime, this is who John Novello is. And I felt extremely blessed and confident about that. That was probably the happiest moment in my life, because from then on in, it didn't matter how many rejections I had, or if this didn't work, or I was struggling with money. I knew who I was and what I was supposed to do. And I think anybody and I help people do that when I mentor them, but anybody that finds that out, where they actually know who they are and what their purpose is, and they make the decision and take responsibility and have enough integrity and courage to go after that, I think that's the home run. That's the Oscar. That's the Grammy. The rest of it is just going through the drill. But that decision is a moment of happiness. And then, of course, if you win a Grammy or you start making money and you become successful, I remember when I started becoming successful at doing that, I even went, oh my God, and they're paying me for this? This is amazing. And I think that happened the first time I was 9 years old.
Yeah.
I played an accordion, played my accordion at an Italian party. And because I was taking lessons and my dad dropped me off at this party, and I was playing and nobody was paying attention to me. I was a shy little 9-year-old just playing an accordion because somebody told me I should do it. And this guy comes over it was like an uncle, and he goes, "Hey, what's wrong with you? Don't you know how to play?" I goes, "No." He goes, "You know the Tarantella?" Which is yet da 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 da, it's a very famous Italian. Yeah. I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, just stand up, quit being a wallflower, and play the Tarantella and watch what happens." So, there's 100 boisterous Italians.
Yeah.
So I stand up and I'm still shy, and I started playing real shy. Da, 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 da. All of a sudden, all the heads turn around and they form a line, and they're doing one of those trains where they're dancing with delay. And I got these goose pimples all over my body, the feeling and the power that I created by just doing that. That was my happiest moment. And then afterwards, they gave me $6. So when I got home, my parents said, "How was the plan for the family?" I said, "Well, it started off pretty bad, but it ended really good. I think I want to do it." And that was at 9 years old.
Right.
So that was an amazing experience that I never forgot. And to this day, every time I go on stage, I'm not jaded. I play, and when I make people feel good, I always recall that.
Oh, wow. Wow. So my final question to you, what legacy of happiness and joy do you hope to leave behind through your music?
Um, well, the happiness that music that I end up creating, like we just discussed with music, uh, and it not only entertains people, but I definitely have found it inspires people, because I've had people all over the world that write me emails and texts, and "I was at your concert and you made me feel so good, and thank you," or "you inspire," all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um, the legacy is, in the Bible, they call it the word, right? What is the word?
Yep.
Uh, to me, the word in caps is that we're all spiritual beings. We are made in the image and likeness of the Creator, and we all have a tendency to want to help others. That's the word. And what music does, and especially my written material as well, but music is to me God's language. And so I think music, the reason why people love music is that it actually reminds them that they're spiritual beings, even if subliminally, you know.
Yeah.
And so you get a rough day and you're working hard and you go to a concert and you feel great. Well, why do you really feel great? You really feel great because it was like a vacation from your 9 to 5 job? Probably. But what's really happening there, the legacy is that's God's communication to you that you are more than what society thinks. You are more than a 9 to 5 job. You are more than somebody that pays bill. You are an eternal spiritual being made in the image and likeness of God. And so to me, I'm helping carry God's message through the musical word and now through my printed word. So that's the legacy that I enjoy doing.
Ah, that's a great way to end a show. John Novello, thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to end the show with your fantastic and wonderful hit, Good to Go. That, as I said to you earlier, that got me dancing before. It's going to get me dancing now. Thank you very
Well,
much.
that's good. Thank you so much for inviting me as your guest. You've been a fabulous host.
Oh, thank you. You've been wonderful.